CGTN's Rochelle Kufo spoke to Afra Zhao Wang. She's the host of Loud Murmurs. That's a Chinese language podcast about American pop culture. And she begins by explaining who in China is writing wills.
It's interesting to say that actually the majority of people who are writing the wills are young people who are in their early 40s or late 30s, the people who were born in the generation of the 1980s. And also there's a certain amount of people who are born in the same generation with me, the people who were born in the 90s. Those are the young people who are writing the wills in China.
So why is this happening? Because usually when you still have, so much more of your life to live is sort of when you get a better idea of what you'll leave people. Why are so many younger people then getting into will writing?
Well, I think there are multiple reasons. So first, there's undeniable that, the pandemic hit the human race so hard. I just checked the number now, almost 3 million people died globally from the pandemic. And there's a certain article about an Italian town, entire generation was basically wiped out by coronavirus. So this actually made people to realize, to reconsider what's the meaning of life and what does that mean for us to die, right? So this is a realization that come to us. And I think the second reason is since a lot of the Chinese people who are writing the wills are young and also they are the only child in their family because of the one-child policy. So people are more aware of their existence. They'd be like, I have the responsibility for my parents and for my, grandparents, my relatives, because I'm the only offspring maybe in this family, or I'm the most valuable the person in, to the parents, because, when the young person, let's say, passed away, the parents are going to suffer the most. And there's certainly a huge population in China who are, mourning their children every day. This is a very sad, yeah.
And it's certainly incredibly important. A lot of people don't realize just how much turmoil gets left behind when people don't leave a will. Yet in America, 60% of Americans, according to caring.com, don't have wills. What are we seeing in terms of rates in China? And do you expect that to change now then because of the pandemic?
I do expect that change, but to be honest, culturally or religiously, people in China are trying to not talk about death. It always has certain connotation when you're talking about death. It always comes with, people are saying, with bad luck, or if you're talking about death, you're expecting that person to live like shorter, those are like a lot of this weird connotation with it. Just to mention mortality among other people is believed to be a bad fortune, right? And so like, in China, in the hospitals, the Chinese doctors even avoid talking death with a patient. And the patient themselves usually avoid talking about their condition openly and honestly. So I do see actually two trends. After the pandemic, people are going to be more open of writing death, but there's just certain social constraint to basically really like disable people from even think about writing a death or talking about death openly.
So then obviously, as you're younger, you have different things that you might leave behind. But as you're looking at the trends of what things are leaving, what people are leaving, what sort of things, whether it's items, now, of course, you have things like digital assets. What are people primarily leaving behind in these wills?
I think wills, especially drawn upon by those who are in their 20s, actually involve a great variety of assets. And, as a person, if you live or spend some time in China, you understand that everything that's financially is basically revolves around the smartphone that's in your hand. And basically the only person who can access that smartphone is you. So, right, that a lot of like digital assets become a problem, and people want to make sure that those assets can be accessible, to their family when they pass away, right? And also, for example, just social media account, a huge following social media account would worth millions. And also gaming assets, cryptocurrency, and a lot of those digital assets are, people's concern, and people do want to make sure that other people have access.
And that does make more sense, because usually you see the older generations leaving things like land and fairly heirlooms, but people really do have to incorporate their digital assets into that mindset as well. What are some of the current legal restrictions, though, in managing or creating wills in China?
So it's still not a very, very common legal knowledge that people possess. So it actually requires certain registration, and that identity verification, and also a certain, fingerprint scanning to guarantee the authenticity. So, it's also varies different, like location by location.
And what are some other perhaps financial habits or trends that young Chinese are doing? That what are you keeping an eye on?
Well, for me, I have a certain amount of money in the stock market. I have a little bit digital currency, and I do have a little bit money in my Alipay and in my WeChat account. So this is me, and also I think my profile basically represents a huge amount of young people, who live or stay in this world, not only China, right, in the U.S. as well. Yeah, so I think that's the portfolio.